couple good debates on separation of duties for agents. A lot of opinions on that. Some folks are one task, one agent. Other folks are a little more. So no, it's good. It's good.
We were just talking about, because we're live now. If I see people joining in, we were talking about an OpenClaw meetup that was happening in Seattle. I did not go, but John was telling me about it. Which I know OpenClaw could be a fun topic, I think, for one of these. Actually, it's come up a couple times. I haven't really, I've looked at it quite a bit. I haven't really installed it and like set up to do anything for me specifically, but it could be fun. People who are already here, would OpenClaw be a fun discussion topic for one of the weeks? And if you're new here, the goal is to also try to build with that thing during the week. So it'd be a fun kind of chance, if you haven't done it yet, to implement OpenClaw, get it running, and then come talk about it if you want, either on stream or in the chat. I think that might be a fun one. I'll probably add that in.
Yeah, I'd be interested. So
yeah, that'd be cool. And then maybe I can get it running on my DGX Spark inside a Flyte cluster or something. Like, I don't know what that looks like yet because I haven't tried running it. So that might be kind of cool. Or giving it tools that run workflows or something like that could be interesting. I haven't done it. Welcome everyone. I know we're a minute early. We're just on time now. I'm gonna wait. We're gonna wait a couple minutes before we really go into content because people are still joining for the first few minutes. So as you come in, say hello in the chat. It's always fun to see like where people are watching from. What are you working on? If you have any projects you want to share. Also, by the way, if you do want to come on the stream, let me bring up a link. I'll probably share this later again too. But if you do want to come on stream, which a lot of people just like discussing in the chat, and that's totally fine. And I'll like help bring up your comments into the discussion. So hopefully it feels like you're participating a lot too. But if you do want to come on stream, you can message me on LinkedIn and you can join the video or audio piece. Let me bring up my messages so I don't make sure I miss them, because I know I've done that in the past a couple of times. But you're also welcome to keep the discussion going in the chat. And then, like I was saying, we'll try to bring your comments up in here. So hopefully it still feels like a fun discussion and that you're participating a lot. And this week, so if you're new here, this is the kind of weekly so far AI engineering build and learn stream. So every Friday for the past, this is the 7th one, I think. Is that the number in the event? We've selected a topic for the week, and then the goal, not everyone does this, and that's totally fine if you just want to come discuss and kind of absorb knowledge too. But the goal, at least for me and some other people, have been spending at least like an hour during the week to play around with that topic or tool that was selected. And then that's often kind of what the demos and then discussions around, but we can also just discuss the topics in general as well. So usually it's like discussion on the topic, how it's used, and then usually a demo or two if someone's built any in the community. So this week is graph data with Neo4j. We're going to dive into this, but it's a cool way of bringing in relationships between data into like your agent or LLM. So I'll have a little demo of doing this with like a chatbot, but there's a whole bunch of different use cases that we can discuss. And I'm also curious, has anyone in the stream used like something like Neo4j in the past, or a relational database, or sorry, graph relations inside of a database? Let us know, because it's always really cool to see if people have like history with it. And then next week, I'm kind of excited about this one. This has come up quite a bit in the community discussions, is Andrew Karpathy's new concept called LM Wiki, which is kind of building a wiki style knowledge base. So unintentionally, originally, we are doing a lot of kind of agent and knowledge based things for the month of May, which is kind of cool that they're going to probably all build on each other, which is cool. So this is a different way of handling knowledge into your LMs. We're going to take a look at that next week. And then we're going to look at Cogni, which is a memory layer for agents, which is actually kind of, it's going to be doing some of the stuff that we've done with Neo4j this week, but behind the scenes, and they have like a really cool abstraction for it. So it builds a persistent layer that discovers things like tools and concepts within the memory. And then the last week of May, we're going to do Ragus, which is evals for RAG and memory. So again, kind of all builds on each other here. Originally, this wasn't intentional, but when I was asking what other people wanted to discuss this week, it kind of all kept coming up into this topic. So kind of cool. May has ended up being kind of a agent memory or LLM memory type of month, which is cool. And then if you have topics that you want to do next, please let me know in the chat now, and then or anytime, and then we can add them in. So whatever you're interested in, I'm probably interested in as well, and we can add in the topic, and then hopefully that'll be a cool thing. Like even if you've never built with it yet, that could be a kind of a call to action or a forcing function for you to build with it. And then one other note before we dive into this week's concept is there is a Slack channel. Let me share this. And if you want to join there and discuss like the project for that week, that's been really fun. So you can share like screenshots or resources for the week. Every week, I might have forgot to do it this week. Every week I try to start a thread in there, and then we can actually discuss during the week, which has been really cool too. So this week again was the graph data with Neo4j. So I'm going to go in. Oh, and did I share this link? So all the code and links and stuff like that are living in this GitHub repo. So you can check it out for all the upcoming events and previous events. You can scroll down, see these are previous ones, and it has a recording attached, but you can also just click into the code section. So today for the graph and Neo4j one, this is the section of the repo that we're discussing. And let me catch up on chat real quick. Again, you're welcome to start perusing through this. We're going to be talking about graphs and agents and graph data a little bit here. Again, specifically, I used Neo4j. I know there's other graph databases as well, but I think this is by far the most popular one. They also invented the Cypher query language, which is open source now, and I think used across most graph databases as well. So just catching up on chat real quick. Somebody said they use Neo4j and looking to replace it with memgraph. Cool, I haven't looked at memgraph. We can bring that up later too. I assume it's another graph type database. And welcome Jay to the stream. And Tim said they've used Neo4j, but have more experience with triple store style graphs than property graphs. And then someone said, wondering if Neo4j GraphRAG Python library is actively supported. I haven't looked at that library. We can go look at that later too. And then someone said a thread will be great. Yeah, join the Slack channel. Usually a lot of discussion there. Also a lot of just other discussion around AI news and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. Welcome up, Jay. Did you build anything with graphs?
I'm in the process of trying to convert my tool from last week to use Neo4j and the vector extension so that it can have some combination of graph and vector.
Cool. Yeah, and Jay's project last week had was like capturing his desktop screen or laptop screen, and then was kind of, what was it, study buddy is kind of what you're trying to build.
Yeah, it was basically like capture the context of what I'm working on at any point in time, summarize it as text, and then store it in a vector database, and then iteratively compact it over time so that it doesn't balloon out, and then make it searchable so that I can say like, what was I doing last week on Wednesday?
Cool. Oh yeah, and so just to get, I have this like kind of readme I was trying to put together here too, but I think one of the best things with graphs is how visual they are. So you probably already know, if you've thought about them or seen something, it's like a graph is you have a node and then they're all connected in some way. So this is Neo4j's like, I forget what this is actually called, their UI where you can explore the database. I forget if it actually has a full name. And I'm actually running this just locally on my DGX Spark, actually inside of a Flyte app, but they also have a hosted version. So if you need like something that scales, you don't want to manage that piece of it, they have something called, I think it's called Aurora. I think that's their hosted version of this. But this allows me to look at the data that I have in here and then see the relationships. And these are obviously the graphs between it. So you start with one node. For me, I have scraped, I think it's something like 400 research papers actually in the RAG and GraphRAG domain. So I'm getting very meta with my data for the demo that I built here. And we can see that this is, well, let's see if I refresh this actually. I'll start from 0 because I think this was on citations. Hopefully this refreshes pretty quick. Might take a second while I'm streaming too. I've never seen it take this long.
So I used the hosted version on It's Aura, AURA.
Okay, that's Aura. Okay, their hosted version, right? Which I think you get like a 14-day free trial too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which is really cool. So if you are messing around with the graph databases, you want something, I assume, blazingly fast, you can go to their hosted version. So I'm going to go click on sites. This is their kind of query language here. So this is citing. Now these are the papers. I can zoom in and you can see this paper in the middle, start citing all these other papers that it's pointing out to. And I can actually, in here, let's up this to like, say 100 or something like that. Now I'm going to have 100 papers in here, and you can see the graph relationship between all these things. This one cites that one cites this other one, and you start building this big knowledge graph, which could be useful for building relationships between things. And then you can use this to bring it into your LLM as context or your agent. So maybe you're doing a common use case in the use case I built today is like you have a typical RAG thing. Like if you were here last week, we built a vector store RAG. It brings in chunks, and then it uses that to build the prompt that's going to generate a response from the LM. But now you can bring in relations, and you can actually have it traverse down, pull in more knowledge. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with this, and see like this paper cited this thing, or this legal case references this other legal case in my documents, and now it can traverse down there and then build that as a knowledge base to give you hopefully a better response. If you click in the Explorer here, you'll see more things like which ones were cited here, which authors were they. You can click in on authors, and if they've authored more papers, then it starts building that graph. They might not have in this case, but you get the idea here, I think, probably from looking at this visual, which the Neo4j host. Oops, I don't know what I clicked on there. I think this is a category. So this is how, all these papers are in that category. And so for my little project here, I bring this in, and then you can ask questions now into the app. Like, I'll just go ahead and show this real quick.
It's the matrix.
Yeah, it is the matrix. This was spun down, so it's going to take a second for me to spin this back up. I'm running things, again, if you were here before, I'm running things locally on a DGX Spark, and then I'm using Flyte v2 DevBox, which is open source and free, so you can go check this out. I built a GraphRAG workflow here that fetches the papers with the search terms that I wanted. Like I was saying, in this case, it's RAG, GraphRAG. And then it embeds those, and then it loads them into my Neo4j database, which is also hosted in the Flyte cluster, or local. It's not a whole cluster. It's just a local running thing on my DGX here. But I have a app that's defined with the Neo4j database, and then I have this so it actually is always scaled up to 1. Oh no, my gemma scaled down, so it's going to take a minute when I query it. So what is RAG? That's okay. I'll show you what it returns. So I'm saying what is RAG here. The reason why it's not generated right away is because I also have my model automatically spin down. So this will take a few minutes to load up, so we can go to someone else's demo or discussion as it's loading, and actually see the response here in a second. But you can see this is what pulls in from the RAG part. Is you have chunks kind of like before. These also link out directly to the paper now, which is very nice. So if I want to go read the paper and make sure that the answer is grounded, very easy to do that. I don't think I did it in the chat, but I will later, or I would later. And so these are the chunks from the vector piece, which we're still doing. Also, I didn't know this. I found out, so Neo4j also has vector store. Originally, I was going to use another vector database like Chroma, like I used last week, but I was able to do it all in one single Neo4j thing, which I thought was cool. You may or may not want to do that, but you can. And then you can see these are the graph relations. So pulled in papers, it says authored by, and then it's bringing citations in and categories, etc. And so now I could do things like, again, this is going to take a few minutes to actually start answering because the model was spun down. But now I could do things like ask it about papers that are the most cited, or something like that. And it'll bring in these chunks. Maybe you'd want to tune in bringing more chunks. And then you can look at, or like you could say, only return or have more weight go to papers that are cited more, or something like that. So it can kind of assign like authority, like this paper is cited the most. Clearly this did something. And then it can kind of bring that in as context to help answer your questions. And just been playing around with trying to make some animations too of like how workflows go, which I thought was kind of fun. So just what the pipeline kind of looks like as we're fetching data. Again, for me, that's like papers, and then you're cleaning those up potentially. chunking those up, and then you're embedding those kind of like we did before in the vector database of here last week. And then we're extracting entities though, and then we're going to create a knowledge base from that. So again, our entities today were just like the citations and stuff like that that were easy to get. But this could be anything. And in fact, Cogni, one of the other tools that is coming up, that one has like automatic entity extraction stuff built in. I think that's really the whole purpose of it, where it will figure out interesting stuff about your data and then embed those, and then you can build that graph off any entity that you extract there. And then the querying piece looks something like this. You go to query, we're pulling in chunks from our vector database, but we're also traversing our graph tree and then bringing in those related things and then merging that context, and then the LM generates it. So we just kind of saw an example of what that would look like in the app. My model's still spinning up. I think it takes like 6 minutes for my full Gemma 2 to spin up. So we can come back to this in a second, but I'll let John or Jay, if you have something you want to show off.
I can jump in real quick, and then let me.
Yeah. Someone asked, what is chunking strategy and indexing in vector database? So the chunking strategy is something you usually want to potentially do probably a lot of tweaking on if you're setting it for the first time. It makes a huge difference in how things are chunked. So you want to have, like, starting out, you might say just chunk, 300 tokens or something like that. But if you're doing something like scraping documentation or having examples, if you just have it cut off randomly in the middle of a function, that's probably not going to work well. So the chunking strategy is really important when you're building something, and you want to think about how that chunk should be returned to the LLM and what would be useful for it and what would it be useful. So like there's no silver bullet for always doing it correctly. Depends on what your application is.
So yeah, very similar flow on this one. Let me get the screens right here. I think everybody can see these. So there's an ingest flow. It's an intake. So right now it's designed to intake documents, and I built a fictional company and had Claude generate 15, 16 documents just to build a workflow around intake. I think ideally I'd also do it with URLs for wikis or whatever. And the idea is, if I'm working for a company and they want me to build a RAG system, I need a way to intake things. So the intake flow is pretty, select your documents, hit run ingest. That essentially will create the compute's hosted on Union. So these are Flyte tasks that will run in Union, and you can see the the parallelism in terms of it's going to in parallel process all 15 files, and then it'll create, resolve, detect, and summarize the communities. I like visuals as well. So, here's the intake workflow, and, Gradio UI, you walk through your process and take the documents, and then you've got the ingest, the fan out. Here below, it describes, what the process is, what the active components are, and then the, code. So the code here is in the ingest chunking.py. So here you can see the ingest in the chunking.py, and there's the active code for that piece. So that's pretty simple how the flow works for the ingest. And then there's also a query flow. From a UI perspective, it looks like this, where you would put in your question. In this case, I've pre-populated the question, or I've pre-run it. How are the 10% discount, 15% discount, 20% discount benefits structured across the tiers, and run it, and it provided me this answer. But as part of this demo, I wanted to learn as well. So what the code actually does is it will first go to Claude, and Claude will determine if it's a hybrid, if it's an entity or a community. And then based on that, it will, with this particular question, Claude determine its community, and this is why. The question asks about how discounts benefit are structured, and then it tells you, well, this is very graph specific. It's community sim. The other example I have here for this question was, how does $500 annual gear credit relate to Everstrom's loyalty tier? And it said that this one was entity, and entity is graph related. And the third one, you can see it's hybrid. The hybrid is a vector search and mentions, graph mentions. So, and it determined it incorporates a vector search because it finds the closest text chunkings by embedding similarity. So I thought it was pretty fun to put in various questions, and in many cases I was like, well, can I guess what it's going to do? Is it going to be community? Is it going to be hybrid entity? I wasn't as proficient at that, but I did run several tests and felt that Claude was very accurate in determining which one, and then the responses were very good as well. From a DB perspective, Sage showed you what it looked like in his demo. This was a basic query which basically gave me the splits based on the type, and yeah, if I wanted to see the graph and the splits, we can go in and do that. But from a database perspective, very simple to set up. I don't believe that the free tiers or even the trial tiers are very fast, and but I don't, for this case, I'm not necessarily looking for speed. So overall, that's how I'm really liking this investment. It's like a 15-minute. I finished the project, and I come from a background where I often I have developers coming to me and they're like, hey, I'm gonna do this and read the README, and I'm kind of okay. I can sit and read the README, but I don't get a lot from the README unless I sit with it on my own. I'm talking meetings where you'll have developers, you'll have customers, you'll have engineering managers like myself, and we want to see a flow. This is a lot of fun because I can with a 15-minute investment, I can appeal to multiple audiences. I can appeal to audiences who want to see a code grab and know what this code is doing for this particular query pipeline section, and I can do that in one visual versus multiple slides. So now that this template's formed, I'm finding that I can get to this point from ground zero in like 5 or 10 minutes. So it's a complement to the README, and it's just using Claude Design. So yeah, that's all I got.
Nice. Quick question on this. I forget if you were already working on this with the vector database last week, but what did you get a sense of as was the sort of primary difference of adding graph support and having those relations when you're trying to pull a particular record or looking for something specific versus just vector?
Yeah, what I was expecting to see a faster response. I didn't get a faster response, but I did get a more accurate response. So I felt that the responses, it was the same set of documents for the vector. The responses weren't as good, and if I would have thought of it, I probably could have ran last week's on the same question and showed the difference. I didn't think of doing that, but there's definitely more detail in this response, and it's more quality, this one will show you the entities and as well. So, but originally I was expecting to see like not only a better response, but a faster response. And I got out of it quite the opposite. It was longer to get to a response, not by much, but the response was more quality. And I think from an architecture perspective, obviously we're going to do things to bring the data more proximate to where you're doing the core things. I think there's an issue here. Not only am I using free tiers, but we're in a demo environment. There's a lot of things which can contribute to the length that it's taking to get a response. So the response length is on average a minute and sometimes greater. So, and I think if I were, I definitely want to see this in 10 to 20 seconds tops. So, yeah.
Very cool. Someone else said they might join in demo too, but I don't see them in here yet. So I don't know if Jay, if you have something you want to bring. Oh, wait, here's Tim. If welcome, Tim.
Hello.
Sounds like you have a cool, potentially cool brief demo too.
Oh,
I can't hear you anymore.
Unmuted.
Try saying something again.
Let's try that.
Oh, there we go. I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Let's try about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do a quick demo. I used Sparkle in a triple store rather than Neo4j. It's not fundamentally different, but
all good. Yeah, it doesn't have to be. We picked Neo4j, but it's all relevant.
Yeah, is it okay if I share screen for a moment?
Yep. Share screen, and then I'll bring it up on stage here.
Okay.
While you're doing that too, I'll answer a couple questions in the chat. Someone said, what was my chunking strategy before? For mine, just for that demo, again, I didn't spend an insane amount of time on this. It's not really meant to be production grade, just showing kind of how the nodes would work here, or the graph would work here. I just concatenated the title and abstract, and that's like my chunk to bring in a paper. But realistically, if I wanted to cite a whole paper, I would chunk up that paper and then bring it in. Here's Tim's screen.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. So this, like I said, it's a quick variation using Sparkle. I think the layout is pretty similar to what Sage and the other presentations did. I used a toy data set based on last week. Last week I did a LangChain LanceDB vector store on some music Gutenberg texts. I didn't demo that one, but to this one I added a Oxygraph triple store using Sparkle with a small data set of instrument categories, kind of like a Dewey Decimal System of like violins or string instruments, or pianos or some kind of percussion instruments. Loaded that in. I found a JSON version of that data and used Polar's data frames, LinkML modeling language. I didn't do it for this time around, but Union AI supports Pandera validation, which I've been working on integrating that with LinkML. So that would be a nice validation step. And then put it into this Pi Oxygraph, and then a Crew AI Olama Sparkle query, and then generate a one-page report. It's a pretty standard report generation example. I'm only running it in the command line right now, and a limitation of my current query is the query will only accept the name of an instrument as an input. In the next iteration, I would run the description of the categories through a vector store, and that would allow a lot more general queries. It's all running locally. This is just a old M1 Mac, 16 gigabytes of memory, so it's using small LLMs. The Sparkle performs pretty well. Oxygraph is a fairly fast triple store, and it scales well, especially compared to Neo4j. I think you have to start paying after a certain graph size, and Oxygraph works. The free tier, it's open source, would compare favorably with that. So all you're seeing here is that the first bit is pulling the chunks out of these Project Gutenberg texts, and then in the then the JSON format comes back from Sparkle. It it can be a query, sorry, a table or any format like this, but the LLMs can then parse that. And it looks like it's still thinking on the final one-page report. I can just tab over to a stored report that I have, and you can see that it's again, it's a small LLM, so the results aren't fantastic, but it definitely has information up here from the texts. It talks about kind of this quirky information about English horns and the specifics that were in this. It was 5 texts, but it could easily run on more. And then the data from that came back from this music categorization also got put into the report here. Yeah, I think moving forward, the main things that I would want to do is, again, combine the text query and the graph query just a little better to accept a wider range of queries. And then there's a lot of directions to go with it. So I'm excited to expand on this.
Yeah, this is awesome. So cool. And yeah, people, at least for me, like the demos I usually build for this, like it's like a starting point, and then I want to expand on them. Like we probably haven't spent like weeks building anything yet.
Absolutely.
This is really, really cool. Thank you for sharing. Oops, and did I kick Jay off, or did you go down? Anyway, you're back.
No,
awesome.
I gotta jump for a second. I just got a call.
Okay, got it. Yeah, very cool. Love it. Oh, what was I might have missed it if you said it, but what was the small language model that you're using right now?
I think it's one of the Quen models. I haven't updated in the last year, but let's see, I wrote it down. A specific one somewhere.
Oh, good. If you don't have it too, I was just curious. I'm always curious.
I'll put it in the text.
Yeah, I'm always curious what people are using and how it's performing. The Quen small ones are pretty good, and then the Gemma small ones are pretty good and fast too, from what I've tried.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to add to throw more data into this and also run it on a larger node and just really dial in the scaling and also query tuning. It's a little sensitive to the chunking strategy. I didn't spend a lot of time on that, and really getting the prompts around the tool use is something that I was needing to dial in a little more. But as a start, I was really happy with this.
Yeah, I'm always for the Friday stream, since we've been doing something weekly, I'm always just happy that I get something running and like using the technologies, and I'm like, great, now I can go expand on this later. But not everything has to be perfect. So just noting for everyone too, if you want to build the projects, like you can build them. They don't even have to be in a fully finished state or anything like that. If you just want to talk about what you learned, any challenges there were, you are welcome to do that. So it's awesome to have you here this week too, Tim, talking about it.
Thanks.
And I just was going to show, you can see mine's running now. That my model is spun up, so it's bringing in all this information, and I asked it. I copied it over. What did I ask it? I said, what graph-related papers are connected to the retriever set? And so it's going to bring in all the knowledge here and that graph that we saw over here, and then it can help answer that and like traverse that graph. So again, I didn't spend a ton of time either, like with the prompt here or the chunking strategy. Again, like my chunks today are just the title and abstract, but I would actually chunk everything up. Someone also asked about why did I use the what was it, the retrieval model, or the indexing, the HNSW, which I forget stands for hierarchical something, but that's the only one that Neo4j ships with in their vector store, I believe, in their database. Why I was choosing that. And also really cool, Tim, seeing the other database that you talked about. I haven't used that. What was it? Oxy. I shared a link in the chat. Oxygraph.
Yeah.
And Sparkle. So I'm going to take a look at that too if I want to expand outside of Neo4j.
Yeah, and also the a cloud vendor version of it would be Amazon Neptune is also a triple scale. But Oxygraph is nice because you can run it locally and play with it there as well.
Cool. That's what I was doing, and what I'll do for a lot of my like experimentation use cases, I think. But always good to know what a cloud version is too. Awesome. Jay, did you have a demo that you want to pull up?
I do not today. I'm just hanging out for emotional support and to learn more about GraphDB, just general architecture. It's kind of
you could build a cool graph like this.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the hope, is because I just prefer a visual to tie like all of his different context movements together rather than just a DB that I'm hitting with a chatbot.
It would be interesting too, for recapping for anyone who's just joined in, like Jay's use case on a project he's building is it's well, you can describe it if you want, Jay. It's like screen capturing, capturing the description of what you're working on, and it might be interesting to put it in like categories or something like that, and then you have graphs that you can bring up.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my screen right now.
I'll share it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this was what I had built last week. Was basically just I call it a context harness right now because the intent is to capture the screens that I'm looking at, and maybe if I was attaching this to like a headset, the pass-through camera, so that I can see what I'm interacting with. But basically, just convert that into strings, text context, and then sort of log that continuously over time. And then store that in a vector DB. Originally, I'd like to pull this over to a graph database so that I can then interact with a chatbot or view it as a visual and be able to get back ideas or context on what I was doing. Like what was I working on last Friday? See if this actually works. Let's see, available logs only cover May 5th. Well, okay, maybe it doesn't go back that far. But regardless, just storing the information over time, and then having a few different layers of compaction and being able to just get insights on the history of things that I was doing, previous activity. Basically build like an external logging knowledge base of anything that I'm working on over time. I think the other thing that Graph would be really useful for this is actually to pull in outside resources, kind of like what you were doing with these research papers, Sage. And correlate that stuff, like basically have the agent, I'm hitting an API that I have set at home on an M2 laptop that I don't use that much. So that's running Olama. I have a proxy for that, and then I hit it through ngrok. And then it's able to fall back to a local LLM on my laptop here as well, where the client's running. But basically, if I could have one of those LLM resources pull research papers or resources on something that I'm trying to build in real time and like populate that stuff in, so that I can be like, oh, there's some really good documentation on this particular topic that I've been churning on for the last 10 minutes. That's kind of the vision for this is yes, like study buddy and also capture history over time that other LLM tools could use.
I met somebody last night in the OpenClaw event, and he created a version of OpenClaw called MetaClaw. He works for Meta, and it uses he basically records every conversation he's in using, I think it's called Super Whisper, and he collects all of the information from, and then certain MetaClaw will take that and put it into a vector store so that he can do exactly what you're talking about. Like, what do I need to do today? And it takes all of his conversations, and so it was pretty fascinating. So
yeah, it's like I had that meeting yesterday. There were like 5 things I was supposed to follow up on.
Yeah.
What did I actually get to today?
Yeah.
Well, I always find some really good combination of time series data, long time series data and graphs, as well as the vector database time series combination as well.
Yeah. I mean, the vector database search, at least last week when I had a larger data set over a couple of days that I've been working on that, it was pretty effective. Like it was pulling specific records back. I didn't have to even do too much tuning on the chunking strategy and retrieval, but I think the GraphRAG is, at least for me, it just feels like it would be a little more intuitive to actually be able to see, hey, you know, over the last month, on several different days spread out over weeks, you were working on this specific project. All of these different sessions, you logged a bunch of activity, you know, on different days relating to those things. And then also, you know, pulling the external resources together around those activities. It's just like, it's a different way to organize your work over time.
Have you thought about putting it into Obsidian or something, and then
Yeah.
building the graph that way, and then you actually have like these knowledge pages to come back to?
Yeah, that's actually, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, okay, so Neo4j Viz is this interactive graphing library that they already have that I could use. I think, is that what you were using on your demo earlier?
This one?
Yeah.
This is the I forget what the GUI is called, but this is Neo4j, and this is like their local.
Oh, it's a web browser.
It's like,
yeah.
It's in the browser for me. It's
Yeah.
just, it's something that you run on localhost. In this case,
Yeah.
it's actually in a Flyte cluster, but then you or not a full cluster, but Flyte running on my DGX Spark, and then you can
Right.
type in your Cypher query language here, and then you get the graphs here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think right now it's probably faster to be interacting with the database and storing these logs over time. But I feel like maybe summarizing the stuff that was done over the day, like I have a mechanism in there right now where after every hour it compacts all of those, you know, several second logs. And over the course of the day, at the end, it creates an outline of that entire day. And so you're not keeping all that stuff. Those outlines maybe could end up in an actual markdown file in Obsidian. And then you would have a little bit more abstracted, but still a useful regular document that you could refer back to.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I like this project. I'm excited to see it grow. Are gonna add in Cogni or LM Wikis, one of the other upcoming topics.
Yeah, so Cogni is on my list because we were talking about it a couple weeks ago. I think that's probably going to be the next step after getting Graph working. A GraphDB setup is actually just to start playing with more of a knowledge management system.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Oh, and Niels asked, what does it look like to set it up? So there's the way I did it. I think there's different ways you can do it for Neo4j. They have their Cypher query language that helps you like pull in data and build the graphs. For me, I did that as just Python functions here that I vibe coded up. So Claude helped me vibe this up last night. So I haven't even like dived like in super deep of how I would probably change this, but it works fine. But you're basically taking those entities. For us, it's like the author, the category, etc. And then you use their methods, unwind and merge, which I forget how to explain unwind, but that's the thing. Both of these things like allow you to expand out and in from those entities, like categories. So if you click on one, what is it linked to? So you kind of link those both with the Cypher query language. What do the relationships look like? For me, it's like only 100 lines because we only did the 5 different entities or something like that, kind of manually. And that's where I think something like Cogni comes in, where you could probably build a layer like this too, but you have like an LM that figures out what those entities should be and then builds that graph from the data, which will be cool to see. I'm excited to try that out. Tim, have you used any other? It seems like you've dabbled a little bit more maybe on some of the things. Have you used any other like tools in the space that you think are interesting?
I mean, so the Sparkle and RDF are in the greater semantic web context, which has a pretty long history. There's a lot of tools, and I don't know if I want to go down my opinions on that, but there's similar visualization tools. The thing I've been most interested in is the associating graphs with sort of a tabular view, and this is where I've recently been working with this LinkML modeling language and the Pandera validation tool. It's maybe getting a little off topic to talk about.
No, it's great.
frames.
We want to go off to wherever things.
That's what I just got into the chat, and I saw Niels talking about the ingestion pipeline, which I didn't really cover. I used polars to reshape the data, but the reshaping data like that really benefits from a solid schema. And what I tend to use for that is the Pandera project that you all maintain. That wasn't in this demo, so I didn't cover it a lot, but I've found the data frame tools tend to scale very well, and they can be converted into a graph. This visualization on the screen sort of has that hairball look, but I find that organizing a graph as sort of a series of linked tables is a way to really start scaling up higher. So I'm maybe rambling a little bit,
No,
but
this is awesome.
I'd be glad to expand on that at some time in the future. And I think the intersection between vector stores and data frames or traditional tables, I think there's a lot of convergence between, is it a graph, is it a table, is it a database? Maybe it's kind of all of those.
All of it. yeah. Even now with even now, for talking with a lot of people that are just storing things as like markdown files sometimes now for memory inside your LM, but then they're often linking to another markdown file somewhere. So then they start building a hierarchy that is like a collection of tables and then also graphs. and they're kind of all those things at once. And for anyone who doesn't know, in the stream, I shared the link for Pandera, but Niels is actually the creator of Pandera, who's in the chat right now too. So, which is always cool. So, if you have Tim, you have any direct questions for Niels right now as a user of Pandera?
I've been meaning to follow up with Niels for a while. So the LinkML Pandera released a few months ago, and I really haven't done a good job of documenting or presenting on that. So I should follow up with both Niels and yourself.
And Neil said he's exploring how to integrate Pandera into data structures that are used in AI nowadays, like vector stores and graph links. So that'll be really cool to see. And just like we were saying, skill graphs, that's the next big thing. Also a hierarchy of markdown files, right? That is basically becomes a graph. I think I'm just seeing so much more of that come up in conversations that I'm having with people, whether it's for a skill or some sort of knowledge base. It's like we've just decided that we store everything in markdown files now, I think. So
it's the universal language.
You'll point your agent to the database, right? Rather than having all these skills and not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Wait. So break down skill graphs for me a little bit here. Are we talking about like agent skills and having a graph relationship between a bunch of them, or is this something else?
That's what I assume. Niels can chime in if he needs something else, but I assume you make, your skill.md or whatever, and then that links to sub skills probably. Right. So if you're like, this skill is for doing whatever, writing a blog or reading something or writing a certain type of code, and then that one can also link to another one that's specific for that. That's what I'm imagining. I didn't say the comment, so that's what I envision when I hear skill graph.
Yeah, because like an agent needs to know, all right, if you call that specific skill, then there might be a bunch of other relatable ones or useful in that context.
Yep.
How do you draw those relationships?
Yeah, and then you're now, because this has come up a few times, like when I'm working on something where I'm like, oh, this should be a skill, but I'm reusing it across different types of things. Yeah, and it should just have a relation to whatever like ultimate skill I'm going to call to do something, and then I don't have to rewrite a skill over and over again or have it baked in there. It should be able to point to this other one, and then also I might want to update it. I'll have to update them all just like you would with a database, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I've been doing something similar to that with like a prototyper skill that I started to build out, and it obviously ends up using a lot of different other ones, but it depends on the project context. It's like the prototyping sort of framing of how to work on this thing and quickly validate and not get bogged down in certain types of engineering or over engineering, but the particular tool stack might be a specific set of skills from one project to another.
Yep. Maybe that's another week's topic, skill graphs. Which
you can have
again,
8 like knowledge bases and then skills, applied knowledge.
I think we'll take a break from this whole month which has been fun, but it's all around like storage and memory, which has been fun. We'll probably switch to something else for a while, but maybe we'll come back. Well, I mean, skill graph is slightly different maybe, but if anyone again has topics they want to do, and that could be anyone on stream right now who hasn't said any topics, or anyone in the chat, like what are things that you want to build with next, and that you can have other people go through it and talk about it on the Slack channel. I've had a lot of fun doing it, so if you have any other topics, let us know. And Tim, I didn't even know you did it last week.
Oh, I was late to the game last week.
All right, all good. Any other topics you think would be interesting?
So many. It's just specific ones.
Not off the top of my head. You've got a really good list here.
Cool. Yeah, I wanted to do probably some more reinforcement learning environment stuff has come up several times too. Should be cool.
Yeah, we'd been talking about Mojoko before. I think embeddings was mentioned before, but now we've got a Q LoRa and LoRa session coming up.
Yeah. Anyway, people join the Slack later too. If you think of any topics, let us know in there. I'll share that one more time. Someone said, can I include live captioning by default in future live streams? I will look at how to turn that on. I didn't know that it wasn't on by default. Do you happen to know if that a parameter I click somewhere? I also create this through StreamYard. I assume I can also go into YouTube and do that, but I thought it would be on by default, but I haven't looked actually. So if you know off the top of your head how to let me know how to do that, let me know. Otherwise, I'll look it up and see.
YouTube, if that's on YouTube, it should have like an auto captioning, but
I thought it did, but yeah, I guess maybe not too. So
there's like a CC on hover in YouTube that should be able to turn that on.
But I don't see it in the live stream.
Oh,
I'm looking at it right now, so I will have to go take a look at that. Thanks for calling it out. Anyone else or anything else before we kind of wrap up the stream? We don't have to wrap up the second or anything, but if anyone has anything else they want to talk about, whether in the chat or people that are up here. You don't have to have anything either.
good right now.
Well,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I had a couple missions on this project. I was also wanting to get more confident, using the Flyte task and really how to code that. And I felt like I gained a little more confidence. I'll share again real quick since you got some time. I didn't take the time last when I was sharing. Let me entire screen. And share. There you go. All right. So here there is, entry point for everything is workflows.py, and that branches out into ingest and query. So you have an ingest folder with your ingest pipeline, and then you have within the query folder very similar structure. So this is basically encapsulation, and within ingest we've got pipeline, which is essentially here's our Flyte task, and very, very similar structure within the query as well. We've got the pipeline file, which effectively starts the process for query. And here's our decorator. And here within the query, we've got our entity retrieve, our community retrieve, and our hybrid retrieve, which are really the three various areas. And from a Flyte task perspective, from a Flyte run perspective, which is what I couldn't get to work a few demos ago, we can see the ingest runs, and then within this particular run, you can see the breakdown of the tasks between the process file, the create vector, the resolve, and the summarize communities. Similar thing within the query pipeline. So if I go into this run, I can see the route, the community retrieve, and the generate. So I checked that goal off on this one as well. So it took me a couple projects to be able to figure that out. So with the help of Cloud, of course. But so yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
So thanks for helping me there.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, and I shared the link to Flyte. So Flyte's the open source AI orchestration platform that we're the core maintainers of at Union. We have other contributors too, but it's used by thousands of companies for their production like AI system, whether that's like doing batch serving or model training pipeline. So, and then you already saw, like, by the way, to join the stream and show off projects, you do not have to use Flyte. Just a lot of us are in that community and have used Flyte or Pandera or other tools. But yeah, like I showed this pipeline before, but this is my quick little pipeline. So it runs this, and I'm actually caching these too. So I can just pull in this pull in the data that's already pulled down, load it back into my Neo4j database. If I tear it down, bring it back up. And then one thing too is I had reports that also embed like how many pagers, how many authors, and stuff like categories that get embedded in here. So with that, great work, Sage, Jay, John, and Tim. Great learning from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anyone else ever wants to come up and present on their stuff on Fridays, you're welcome to do so. Again, you can join. I'll share it one more time if people are still here and didn't join yet. Joining the Slack channel is usually a lot of fun. There is the ML and AI channel is usually where I post the thread for the week. So if you are building on next week's topics, which is Karpathy's LM Wiki, which you may have heard about, or maybe not, or maybe you've heard about it, but you haven't really dived into it like I was last week until we opened up on stream because someone wanted it as a topic. You can go check it out. This is going to be next week's thing. And I'll just share his gist real quick. It's not a pre-baked tool. It's really kind of a design philosophy of how to design a memory system. So other people did open source solutions in here. So we might take a look at some of those. You could also take this, probably throw it into Claude, have it build your own, and then play around and tweak it. So that's what I'm going to do next week. So if you're interested in that, come check it out. It seems kind of cool, building kind of different layers and representations of stuff that you're working on. So I might try it in some projects for myself. Like, it'd be kind of cool. Someone said good stuff. Someone said nice work, everyone. I love all the compliments coming in from our quick demo project. So again, the code is on here. If it's not already in here, feel free to send me links later, and I can add links into here if your project's not actually in this repo. I'm always happy to link to the projects that people showed too. So with that, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, John. It was awesome having you up here this week showing demos. So it's cool getting more people every week and have people showing stuff. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for running these.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna end the stream now. So thank you, everyone. I'll talk to you all later. Hopefully see you at some other streams.